The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, Nashua. This is Jocelyn with Chattin, and welcome to our show. Today's guest is Doris Hohensee. I had to get that right. And she is with the Nashua School Board. Trying to keep it simple, thank you. And our subject today is upholding the law, specifically the laws of the school board. So welcome, Doris.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. It's been a crazy day.
Every elected official,
yes,
they take an oath to uphold the rule of law. The state laws, the policies of the board, and federal law, the Constitution, the whole bit. That is our duty.
So when you say take an oath, that's literally swearing?
They swear you in. You're on. You put your hand up. Mm-hmm. You repeat the oath, and you're sworn in.
So totally official.
Right.
For real.
Elected officials.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're expected to have this duty, and I tried to explain to my board it's an individual duty because we individually take the oath. It's not a collective duty, like if the majority goes this way, I'm allowed to forget about the law. No, I still have to uphold the rule of law.
Individually, you must all uphold the rule of law,
right.
And then collectively maybe a vote, but it's not.
And sometimes the board goes astray, but they should listen even to a minority that says you're not following the rule of law, and they should come back on track if they take their oath seriously. So we had an incident on the student elections. We have 2 high schools. We have a representative from each high school that comes on our board. They participate, but they can't vote.
Okay.
So we had the election, I guess, in December, and I've got a parent that came to me and said, my child didn't get a ballot. So I'm thinking, well, why was anybody denied a ballot? That's a big thing.
Yeah.
If you're going to the polls and you're denied a ballot, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And then I got another a parent saying, my child was electioneered against in his classroom.
Electioneered against?
The teacher was talking about the opponent, encouraging people to vote for the opponent. Now, first of all, you're not supposed to electioneer for regular candidates, for, elected officials.
Correct.
And this is a student election, so it's a mock election, but it is an election. Why would they be electioneering against one student in front of another? That's what I would.
Especially in a public school where everything is supposed to be fairness and equality. That just flies in the face.
And then a parent told me that the name was wrong on the ballot. Instead of using the first name, they used the middle name.
So that happened to the name recognition?
Who knows what and then there were some other racial remarks that I don't really want to go into. So there's a state law that says that the student councils are supposed to establish written procedures for nominations, elections, petitioning, and filling vacancies. So I asked for those written procedures, and I was met with obstruction. Oh, no, you can't have that. It would take so much time. We don't have time. We're doing all the superintendent was too busy to give
For student council, they could not give you those rules and regulations?
So I
knew it was burdensome?
I knew this was going to be a 6-month wait. So I immediately turned it over. I said, well, I resubmitted as a right to know request.
Okay.
So you have 5 business days.
All
so
right.
I figured then maybe I'll get it in a week.
Okay.
I wanted it before the students were brought on. I wanted to know what was going on. When you have an election up at the State House, they verify the election results, and then they swear them in. There's no verification here. I don't know if there's a checklist. How many ballots can a student get? I guess more than one if he's lucky, and not one if he's not lucky.
Right.
I don't know. So I just wanted the procedures to see how far off track they are. There are no procedures.
Oh, dear.
So after 5 days, they brought me into a non-meeting with the attorney, and they're trying to get out of me, who called? Who contacted you? I'm like, I'm not talking about this. They're afraid of retribution, and I'm going to cough it up. If they went to the newspaper doesn't cough it up.
Correct.
Why would I have to?
Why would you? Yeah.
So they were very upset about that.
Oh, dear.
I was supposed to get the right to know that day. I still didn't. 2 days later, I reissued my right to know because I'm thinking I'm getting jerked around. That's the law. They're breaking the law. They're breaking 2 laws now.
And even if, as they said, there weren't any, you should at least gotten some kind of notification that said there are no rules or regulations
that
or
would
procedures.
have responded to the right to know in a timely manner. So that law was broken, and then the student election law was broken. So there's 2.
Wow.
So I redid it after 7 days, and I sent it to Telegraph and the Union Leader. I figured they like elections, fair and open, transparent. They understand. So maybe they, just including them in on the conversation, I'll get somewhere. So finally I get all this information, which is there are no procedures. There was no acknowledgement. I get page after page of nonsense.
Stuff. Yeah.
Right. And meanwhile, the superintendent is going on a rampage, and he's saying that this right to know request is unwarranted. It's frivolous. It's weaponized against the children. Wait a second.
Weaponized? What is this wording?
Every student would want a fair and open, transparent election. The students that were elected, it's not their fault if there were no rules. They're victims as much as the people that didn't make it.
Correct.
They're all victims. So we need to solve the problem, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. But he's going off. He's sending out special letters to them, demonizing me for asking the question. They had a whole bunch of, they encouraged all their friends. They had public comment. I'm just this terrible person that doesn't recognize these students. I said, no, I welcome them. I said, they're going to do a great job. But I said, we all need to find out if there were procedures and if there were any irregularities, and let's straighten it out for next year.
Well, if nothing else, we're teaching them the proper voting procedures that you're going to go through when you're 18 years old, and they're the same thing, different times of life. One's in a school and then one's as an adult. The procedure should be the same rules should apply, and oh, by the way, kids, students, this is how it's done, and we need to make sure that your rights as a student
We're respected.
were respected.
Right.
Wow.
Otherwise, you give up on the process and you figure it's just rigged from the start. I can't open my mouth. I'll get in trouble. So next, the superintendent takes private emails from the parent and sends them to the union leader and the Telegraph.
He didn't have permission to do that, did he?
No, the attorney told us not to disclose any of these.
So how did he get them?
He had them.
Okay.
But we as the board all had them. They came to the board, but our attorney said it would, let's just keep all this confidential. He sends it all out to the press. He violated the privacy of a parent. No apology.
Oh, dear.
So, okay. And then it's very antagonistic at the meetings, and they're all jumping down my throat. Okay, that's fine. I can take it. I have to uphold the rule of law. That's my duty. Then I get this. I get this letter anonymously in the mail from a constituent, and he's criticizing the superintendent for how he's behaving in respect to the right to know law, saying that he's a dictator and giving a few historical references.
Okay.
Nothing threatening. It's not hate speech. If it was hate speech, it's still free speech.
Basically still First Amendment and pointing out.
And he knew it was free speech, but he was worried about it escalating. Anything you post on Facebook could escalate. I mean, but so I get the police 9:30 at night after a budget meeting at my house. They're just doing their duty. Why? I mean, did he ask the police to come? He could have called me.
What were they there for? This?
Investigate this terrible letter.
Oh, like they have nothing better to do than to have to get
like
involved?
Like he felt
in
threatened by this? He felt threatened for his family? Isn't that what he said about George Farrington when he kicked him out of the central office, and now we have a $1.5 million lawsuit that's still not resolved? So now he didn't like me posting on Facebook, so this is how he harasses and intimidates me?
Wow.
So all I'm trying to do is uphold the rule of law. Not because I just think that would be fun. I have a duty to do it.
Right.
So
and, and it is the right thing to do.
Yes, I would do it anyway.
It is teaching students and everybody the correct way to do things, the fair way to do things, plus that you're an individual that takes your job seriously, that takes your oath seriously in a world that doesn't happen very often.
Right.
And you become painted as the bad guy.
So I asked the board president and the attorney, I said, I want an apology. I want an apology.
At least.
For myself, and I want an apology for those parents.
For putting their information out there without their permission.
For violating their privacy.
their privacy.
Yeah. It's not professional behavior. Yes, there's a lot happening on our board.
You know, it's strange. I've been going to a number of school board meetings, and I have to say, shocked by the behavior of some of the board members, the rhetoric, the bullying tactics.
Bullying.
Bullying, and you know, bullying, the word is, I think, overused. It's become a catch-all phrase. But I am still shocked by the bullying and the use of rhetoric with that tactic against other board members.
That's why we have parliamentary procedure, to keep the whole process civil. So if you follow the procedure, everybody gets a voice. You're all elected, you have a voice. The minority knows they're going to lose in every vote.
But it doesn't mean that you don't have the right to speak your side
Exactly.
or speak your evidence.
So what they try to do is bully us into silence.
Oh.
And that's what the superintendent was like, how dare you make a right to know request? How dare you ask what the rules are?
So let me ask this silly question that I've asked a couple of times, and other people have not answered me, so maybe you can answer me. So who does the superintendent work for, actually?
The school board.
That's what I thought.
But
That's
he
what
gets
I
away
figured
with
out.
it because the majority gives him a
Because
free
they're rubber
rein.
stamps.
Right.
for whatever
Everything
reason.
he wants, no matter. I feel like a cover girl. I'm supposed to cover up for his mistakes? No.
So it's
that's
very
not why I was
interesting
elected.
because that now, which is in going to the different school board meetings in different various cities and towns, I noticed this, that the superintendent is almost like the president of the club, and I
Yeah.
had always been told and read that the superintendent works for the school board. The school board works for the taxpayers and ensures that the students are educated.
The only district that I think has it right is Manchester. They have their board on an inner circle and they have the administration on an outer circle. So when the administration talks, they walk over to a table at the end of the horseshoe and they address the board.
That's the way it should be. Wow.
Otherwise, they don't speak.
Or they do as a member, I've observed, as a member of the school board, sitting equally with them, and 9 times out of 10, I've noticed them sitting directly to the side of the board, of the president of the board.
But that's confusing to the public. The public should see the board and the public should see the administration.
Correct.
And how they're working together, but the administration doesn't rule the board. But anyway, so another issue we had that was pretty volatile was cursive. So in 2010, when Common Core came in, the state adopted it. There's no more cursive. So
Okay.
we have materials for cursive. Our teachers know how to teach cursive.
For years and years and years.
So we're concerned that students can't decipher cursive. That means they can't read the Declaration of Independence.
Exactly.
They can't sign their name on a check or on a legal document. So maybe we want to add that back in.
Yes.
A district standard. It doesn't, I mean, the state doesn't have it, but we could add a district standard. I couldn't even get a second on my motion.
From the entire board, you couldn't get a
Well,
second?
it was a committee of 3.
Oh, okay. Committee.
So usually out of respect, they'll let you get a second so you can get a vote, okay, and bring it to the full
But you
board.
couldn't even get it.
I couldn't even get, yeah. One board member said his kids learned, and it's really not that important, so we don't have to teach it. His kids are in high school. They learned before Common Core came in,
Correct.
and so now he's going to deny it to all future kids.
And is there a rationale for that?
They're too busy. One
The teachers are too busy?
Yes. Well, and I don't understand. See, we're not allowed in the buildings.
Okay.
We had these ID badges. When this superintendent came in, he just deactivated them. We used to be able to go into 17 buildings if we wanted to talk to a principal, sit down and observe a class. We're not allowed in the buildings. We're not allowed to talk to the principals. We had a schedule to go and meet with some of them for this 1 week period, and we had a conflict. So we went in and asked the middle school principal if we could reschedule to the next day. We thought we were polite. We went in and then we left. We were in trouble for even talking to him. But we couldn't stay that day. We had a conflict. But anyway, so
This is mind-blowing,
so
and I really don't
don't
think
really
the public
know what
gets
goes
this.
on in the elementary schools, even though I oversee the district. But this nice teacher. And I'm sure what she said is true. She has 24 students, and they range in reading levels from kindergarten to 8th grade.
And what grade does she teach?
5th. So she's juggling a lot.
Wow.
So
That's
she's
a
very
huge spread.
busy. And then the assistant superintendent said, well, we're also implementing social emotional learning. Well, what is that?
What is it?
It hasn't come to the
Social
board.
emotional learning?
It's not academics. Now, if this
Is it part of the curriculum?
apparently,
Well, then if it's part of the curriculum, it's my understanding that the school board is in charge of curriculum.
yes.
Oh,
So when we-
gosh, silly me.
So when we ask for a demonstration or a presentation on social emotional learning or play-based kindergarten, because that was a state law that was enacted last year, went into effect in August.
Play-based
Learning.
learning.
So what they did is they took 1st grade and put it into kindergarten to give our kids a head start.
Okay.
So the kids are crying over their assessments because they're not ready to learn to
Right.
read and do arithmetic and sit there and do paper after paper.
Right.
So the legislature passed this bill that said they had to teach through play-based learning. So it's not this sit at a desk and fill out papers all day long. You actually have to go around and play with things and learn that way. So I want a presentation. I've been asking and asking and asking. Well, the latest I heard is it takes 3 years to develop a curriculum. So we're going to be in violation of state law for 3 years?
So how does that violate state law?
State law was enacted in August of 2018.
Okay.
And they're telling me it takes 3 years
To enact, I see what you're saying.
to enact play-based learning.
So in these 3 years, as they're enacting this play-based learning, the students, what if the students don't grasp it, or what if they don't get
I
good
don't know what-
assessments?
I don't know what they're doing.
Do you throw it out the window and start again, and meanwhile we have
took
3
the
years?
assessments out of kindergarten because
Okay.
they told us the kids were crying over them.
Okay.
I didn't think that was right.
Okay.
So they shouldn't be taking assessments. It's not required to the 3rd grade. Why are we pushing it down to kindergarten?
Okay.
But what are they doing in the kindergarten? I don't know. We have half-day students. They just literally dodge the question. If you have a half-day student and they come in every day for a half of the day, do they get behind in math and behind in reading because everybody goes a full day? Or do they have a separate program? What accommodations do they make for these students? Parents have asked me. They want to know.
Are we learning the same thing?
I don't get an answer.
So is the half-based the same as the full day?
Right.
And so if the mornings just taken up with, for lack of another word, academics,
Right.
play-based, but academics, and then the full days are playing, and
I
then
don't know.
play learning. I mean,
I get no
but
explanation.
but here's the other thing, that as a taxpayer, what are you paying for?
I don't know because they won't tell me. And the majority of the board is very happy not knowing anything.
But you're answerable to the taxpayer, and if the taxpayer is paying that kind of money,
See, they
you need
think-
to make sure that the students are having something,
The majority is happy.
because it's
Why should I worry about state law? Whether it's the student elections, whether it's play-based learning, why should I worry? I'm a troublemaker for trying to follow state law.
So this just blows my mind, because as a parent, as a taxpayer,
Right.
I would like to know that my investment, our investment in education at whatever level is producing what it should, and that the students are learning at whatever level that needs to be, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 12th grade. But it seems like there's nothing to ensure that something's actually going on, and you're being obstructed.
Well, they
from
told us
knowing.
we would get it in a curriculum committee in October, November, December.
It's March.
Well, it hasn't come
Again,
about
silly
yet.
me.
And-
6
and
months?
then-
Wow.
And then a board member was saying, well, gee, it takes 3 years to develop a curriculum. Like, why are you so anxious? State
Because
law.
you don't want to wait. State
State
law,
law.
rule of law, upholding rule of law.
Right.
And, oh, by the way, there isn't any student on earth that has the time to lose 1, 2, or 3 years worth of education.
Yeah.
That would put them automatically behind if that was a curriculum that didn't function.
Well, there are studies to say that if you push the kids too hard, they develop all kinds of problems.
Correct.
I think in Finland they delayed it a year and they reduced their ADHD by 80%.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, but
So-
if you're pushing that every child has to go to kindergarten and XYZ and we're going to do this, it seems to me it should be transparent.
It should be transparent.
It should be
And
transparent.
it should follow state law, which they probably
Whatever
saw-
that may be.
They saw the studies,
Yeah.
and they passed. The state legislature passed play-based learning. It was signed by the governor. It's now law. And what are we doing? I don't know.
Don't know.
Maybe I'll find out in 3 years.
Maybe you might.
It's not good enough.
Wow. And in the meanwhile, you're getting questions from
From parents.
parents, and rightly so.
I had to ask them for over a year, would they write down on the registration form that you're signing up for half day or full day? The assumption was full day for everybody,
I thought so too.
because that way they can charge the state for a full day. You can pull your kid out any time you want. So you see, we can charge full day and you can get your half day and everybody's happy, except the taxpayer
Who's paying for full day?
when they're only giving the kid half day.
Yep. So let me ask you
So they
this.
finally updated the form and I thanked them.
Good. Well,
It took
I mean,
a while, months and months of...
I mean, that's the whole point, is to make things better and better so that the education continues and the rule of law is followed and everybody knows what's going on. So in Nashua, can you, now I have older children, so I've already gone through all of this, I'm in the college phase. So when my children did nursery school and kindergarten, I chose, there was no option.
Right.
So is that still available to parents that do not want to go to public kindergarten? Can they go to a private?
It's totally voluntary.
Okay.
It's not mandatory till first grade. So
Okay.
it used to be that we had to provide, I think it was, we had to provide a half-day opportunity.
Okay.
Nobody has to attend. And then they upped it by saying if it's full day, we will reimburse you for a full day. Up to this new Keno law, the state would only reimburse half day.
All right.
So people or districts mostly did the half day, and only a few did the full day until the reimbursement was there. Our district went to full day.
Okay.
So
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because I thought I heard a little tidbit somewhere, going totally off subject, that all the Keno that comes in, while it might make, just to pick a number out of the air, $3, it actually costs more to implement and run it. So
oh, I didn't know that. I know it's just getting started, so it's
hopefully it'll
right.
reverse.
And there's a bill they're trying to get rid of it before it even finds out if it's going to work. So I don't know. That's
Yeah,
that's a
that's
state-
beyond our pace, my pay
Right.
scale. So that's very. When did school and school boards and all of this become so political?
Well,
And
they try to
so-
paint the minority as troublemakers and divisive, and we just don't know our place to sit and be quiet.
You don't know your place? Wow.
Right. They shortened
pretty
meetings.
sanctimonious.
They put restrictions on our speech. You can only talk 2 minutes the first time, 1 minute. They're just throttling speech.
And yet you are there, elected by the people. You've chosen to serve in this manner. You're not paid.
But you're the minority, so you're just supposed to sit in the back of the bus and let them run the show. It's not really what. Then we wouldn't have had to take an oath. We take an oath to uphold the law, whether we are in the majority or minority, that we have to vocalize and help steer.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the law applicable to everyone equally?
Should be.
Oh, again, I must have had a really terrible education or something.
I don't know.
I don't mean to laugh, but goodness.
We did a motion to encourage the kids to go back and write those procedures. The board voted it down. And one member looked at it and went, we don't need this. She's looking at the state law. We don't need this. What we're doing is just fine.
So to date, the students don't have any rules and regulations
No.
for their
No.
elections.
For the nominations, elections, petitioning to bring an issue to the board, or filling a vacancy. There's 4 categories
Wow.
in 2 high schools, and we don't have it. And the board didn't ask
Isn't
for
worried
it.
about it.
We have a policy that we're supposed to approve them, so they're supposed to bring them to us for our approval to make sure they're there. I kind of think maybe in 2009, the board did do something, but wherever they are, they're misplaced they should be published in the student handbook
Exactly.
so that they don't get lost. And one board member said, I'm reading the state law. It doesn't say the procedures have to be written. And you're thinking, if they're not written, how do you know what they are?
Exactly. And again, every student should be able to go to that handbook and
Right.
know what the procedures are, what's right and what's wrong, and
Right.
and how they should behave, proceed.
It's called open and transparent.
That transparency word, I think maybe I should look it up for another show. And I have a list that I've started of I call the bandied about words that seem to be thrown back and forth like in a tennis match. That one side's lobbying against the other, lobbying against each other, and I don't think they actually know the meaning of these words.
No, some people just don't have any regard for it. They think that if we all get along and we get our meetings done quickly and we all agree with the administration, we're running the district properly.
Wow.
When we ask questions, the first year, the superintendent would put them on this list. Might as well just put them in the circular file. 6 months later, he'd come back and he'd ask the board, well, which ones do you want me to answer?
The ones we gave you 6 months ago?
I know, and then... So if they vote against it, you don't get it anyway. So that's why we're resorting to right-to-know requests.
Okay. So, wow. If I ran my business anywhere similar,
You'd be out of business.
I'd be out of business. So tell us about the right to know. What does that really mean? I mean, it's obvious in what it says, but what does it really mean?
It's to keep government open and transparent to the public. So under RSA 91A, you can read the state law, it's on the website, you're putting in a request for information, and if they have the information, they're supposed to provide it to you within 5 business days.
5 business days,
If
right.
they can't, they're supposed to tell you why they can't. If they don't have it, they're supposed to tell you they don't have it. They didn't have the procedures. I didn't get an honest answer.
Correct. And it seems to me, so if you want to be obtuse, if you want to be not transparent, if you want to be translucent, the easier thing would have been to say, we can't find them, hang on, or there aren't any, and then see what your next step was, or think that it was finished. But it seems to me that they're agitating the whole situation, that they are escalating by not being honest.
If they just said, I don't know where they are, you're right, you have a point, let's address the issue. Fine. Who's going to complain?
Nobody.
But I got dozens of pages
And the
that
police
were
at your front door.
that were completely
blows me away.
irrelevant. Irrelevant sheets of paper, like as if there you are. Like you're an idiot. You're a bumbling idiot. You won't be able to read this and realize that there's no procedures in here. And then retaliate and intimidate when I post on social media a constituent that doesn't like how he's behaving. Oh, he feels threatened? Well, behave.
Well, but if the superintendent felt intimidated by this freedom of speech letter, article,
It was a criticism of his ill
why
behavior.
didn't he deal with that person directly?
It was an anonymous letter.
Okay, I missed that.
Why
part,
didn't
sorry.
he call me
Yeah.
and talk to me? Why did he have to call the police? Is he threatened by me? I'm a grandmother.
I just still don't understand why that would have anything to do with the police.
The police are lovely. They come to your
They're
door.
nice, like they're great guys and women.
But it's like, why are we wasting
Why are we
tax
here?
dollars?
Yeah.
It's just intimidation.
Yeah.
Because he knows it's free speech.
Well, it blows my mind because my police officer, my husband was a police officer for 34 years. It was 10 years in Merrimack and 24 down in Boston with the MBTA. So in 34 years, I have never heard of anything remotely like this.
If I called up and I said, you posted a letter that I don't like and it might escalate, would you go to her house and check it out? Do you think they would?
No.
Unless they have evidence, they wouldn't go there. But I'm guilty until proven innocent? I mean, totally backwards.
Wow.
And it's because he's the superintendent.
I don't care who he is.
Exactly. Equal treatment under the law? Anybody?
Innocent till proven guilty. I mean, I feel like we're having a class on the Constitution right now.
Somebody needs it.
You know that little book that we all carry around? I got one in my purse, I got one in my
Yep.
car, I've got one in my house, my boys all have them, my family has them, and it's not to be rude or a smart aleck or anything like that, but the Constitution is what this country is based on, and one would think that schools and businesses and the government would
When you've
run
got the
accordingly.
majority, you act how you like. This is their attitude. No, there are guidelines. There are parliamentary procedure that you need to
So that's
follow.
another thing, parliamentary procedure. We hear these phrases spoken a lot at the give us an example of parliamentary rule. Procedure, excuse me.
You raise your hand to be recognized. When you get the floor, you're allowed to speak. One of my colleagues on the minority side was talking about cursive, and he's listened to all these, and he's like, you're giving me excuses. In other words, we've always been able to teach it, and he didn't find this was sufficient cause enough to say that we couldn't do cursive. So he used the word excuses. He says, I think this is excuses. Bang, 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 bang. And she interrupts him, the board president, and tells him he's being disrespectful.
Because he used the word excuses?
Excuses. He didn't think it
Oh,
was
dear.
valid. I mean, their arguments, he didn't think they were valid. You could 15 to 20 minutes 3 times a week in 3rd grade. That's all you need. And then maybe once they understand it, have them do some homework in cursive.
Yeah, a little reinforcement,
Yes.
because that's what it is.
But why is he gavelled and silenced and interrupted?
It's not a courtroom.
That's what they do. I have been interrupted more times than I care to talk
I
about.
find I would be personally offended by anybody gaveling in a committee or a school board or whatever that you're
He was out of order.
What?
Was out of order.
out of order. Oh my
Yes.
word. This is really
And you could-
embarrassing.
You can challenge the chair. You could say that, I would like to challenge the chair, and the body takes a vote. But they will just give it to her. Wow. So it doesn't matter
This
because
is
we've tried that.
mind-boggling.
It is.
I don't think parents and the general public actually understand this
They do.
hidden side.
They do, because
Do you?
with this election, the parents whose privacy was violated and the parents who complained, why didn't they file a complaint? They could have. And it would have been a slam dunk.
But they didn't
Their
because
private
it was
because of
they were
retribution
afraid. Because the retribution
on their child.
comes back. Thank you. Comes back on the child, and in some cases, if you own a business in that town, it comes back on your business.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. I know that for a fact.
And then the board majority says, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no such thing as retribution." Well, then why do I see so much fear? So it's just not true.
So parents are bullied and are in fear of the retribution to themselves and mostly to their children.
Well,
Wow.
this parent that was put out into the public, she wishes that she kept her head down and her mouth shut. She wasn't filing a complaint. She was asking questions. Asking questions gets you in trouble. So keep your head down and your mouth shut. Wow. So we're living in what kind of a country?
Socialist, communist.
I mean, is that a little bit of a dictator at the top and everybody follows?
Well, it seems to be a common theme, it seems to me, in listening to different school boards and deliberative sessions, and you could add any committee into that. The dictator-like.
Qualities, yeah.
Yes.
And that's what this letter said. And that's why I get the police.
But it's still insane. I still can't wrap my head around it because you didn't write it.
No.
So,
I wanted to know, did anybody else get it?
That's a fair question.
I mean, they have my name on the back, a stamp. They folded it into 3 pieces and put it in the mail. I thought there was an envelope and I lost it, but this page
that
is
was
the
it,
envelope.
yeah. So it was
And
to let
none
you
of the other
know.
board members got it. I got it because it was in defense of my right to know request, because he was being so egregious, going out there and saying there's this, derelict board member. weaponizing a right to know against the students. It's like, really?
Again, the use of words there is just beyond
Yeah.
what it needed to be. And like you said, hello, why couldn't we have had a conversation? What
If
is
he had
this whole
answered
thing?
in a conversation, I wouldn't have needed a right to know.
Yeah.
My purpose was finding out, are we following state law?
Because of the oath. So it all comes back to
And
upholding
he
the
has
rule
not
of law.
acknowledged that we are not following state law. The board has voted down any effort to get in compliance with state law.
Oh, goodness gracious me.
Yeah. And
So where does it stand right now? Are you in a holding pattern or?
that we just voted it down. There's no problem. Nobody's acknowledging there's a problem.
So it's all gone. So just lift up that carpet and sweep it under and stomp it down.
So I'm going to ask for an apology. So see what if I get one.
I'm guessing no.
But that's
It'd be the
all
right thing to do, but
I'm tired. I'm not his punching bag.
you're not anybody's punching bag. You are doing the taxpayers
Doing the people's
the
I'm doing
people's
good work,
duty,
yeah.
what they elected you to do, what the job description asks you to do.
And if
Wow.
if they don't acknowledge the problem, it's going to happen again.
And it could be a multitude. It wouldn't necessarily show up as something like it could show up as any type of problem, but it's still going to be treated the same way. Wow.
So if you've got parents and some of the teachers, we saw that a lot with the grading. There was 54% against the new grading, but
That's that competency-based.
they wouldn't speak up. That's when I first saw it. Here you have a majority of the teachers, but they won't speak up. So not all teachers are afraid. The ones that do speak up, they're patted on the head and they're given a promotion or whatever. They're in good standing with the administration because they're defending them. But those who challenge them and present their arguments in opposition, those are the ones that get slapped down. So if you can't, as a teacher, parent, or student, speak up to try to correct a situation or make constructive criticism, there's no way to fix this system. None. None. Every problem you've got is going to continue and grow because you're not allowed.
And become insurmountable.
Right.
Because, again, the old comment of the deck is stacked against you. So, so it seems to me that who in their right mind is going to, if you ever decide to step down, who's going to run in your place?
Well, in November,
seeing what's going on.
In November, 5 seats become available.
Really?
3 of them will be the minority, and 2
Two
others.
of them the majority.
2 others. Yeah,
Wow.
they're from the majority. So if people want to get on and
Now's the time. So if you
take
get
the
5,
abuse,
yeah. But if there's 3 in the minority and 2 others, technically 5.
yeah, if we get a clean sweep.
If you could get a clean sweep, wouldn't
Right.
that be awesome?
Right, if you want-
So Nashua, we need a clean sweep. You need to run.
Well, unless you
Step
want
up.
the circus to continue. And they blame it on us, but before they came on board, none of these problems existed.
Isn't
None
that
of them.
funny?
But they blame it on us, the old timers, when they're the new timers and they've disrupted the order. But they project. It's our fault.
Wow.
Because we don't go along to get along with them. Don't we respect them because they're the majority, so therefore you don't have a voice, so
Yeah, but-
therefore rule of law doesn't matter?
But majority, I mean, I understand the whole idea of majority, but just because there's more of you does not make you right.
They can win every vote. I'm not going to argue that, but
But at least hear the other side.
Hear
At
the other
least
side.
use your, critical thinking skills, think outside the box, bring another idea, bring another solution to the table.
Yeah.
That's how problems are solved. That's what you're teaching your students, but yet
oh, they're being taught a lot. They're being taught how to keep their mouth shut and keep their head down.
that is so wrong. That is so wrong.
But what else is there? What other lessons have? That's what I observe over and over again.
Well, I do know when my children were going through high school, the different issues that they dealt with and their friends, and parents and those students would often talk with me, and we'd all get together. And it was absolutely true that if you as a parent questioned anything or offered another solution or wanted to talk about something that was going on, if it was in direct opposition to the faculty, and your child was punished.
Yeah.
I can name a number of times that in the high school they attended, they had advisory. And the teacher, as you indicated in your story, would gang up and would get students to gang up against those one or two other students.
Yeah.
That is supposed to be
That's
a
what
time of...
scares me about social emotional learning. They say that there's certain behaviors that you need to be out in the workforce. We don't educate kids with academics. We're doing workforce training for the workplace. There's two different things.
So is that a version of outcome-based education?
Yeah. But social emotional learning, they've decided whether your behaviors are appropriate or not for the workforce. So if you show behavior that they think is inappropriate, it's their job now to help remediate you for your behaviors.
So what is their
Not
actual
your
training?
academics.
But don't they have to be a doctor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist in order to be determining somebody's emotional state and what
And
you
not
would do about
and
it?
figure out what's going on in their family behind
Yeah.
them? Yeah. That would be interesting.
Well, the
Yeah.
other thing is considering the huge variety of jobs available in this great United States, how are these few people determining emotions for all these jobs? How could you possibly have the time and
A little bit
energy?
of hubris? Yeah. A little bit.
Wow, when you're
So,
supposed to be educating.
Why don't we get a presentation on it? Why doesn't the board
Because
vote?
it's nuts.
So we get this grant, we found, we're looking at the budget, and 20% of this grant has to go for professional development and implementation of social emotional learning. Free money, let's take it.
Well, number one, money is never free. It always comes from the taxpayer. Sorry
Right.
to burst everybody's bubble. There is no such thing as free money because it's your little tax lesson. They take your taxes from your paycheck, it goes to the federal government, and they bring it back to the state with a lot of strings attached.
So when you implement this pilot program, then they ask for, if they ever do ask for a vote, they will turn around and say, but we did all this professional development, and we did all this time, and we've invested our heart and soul into it. So you're made to feel guilty if you evaluate it on its merits and say, well, no, I don't think it's a good idea.
Isn't that tried and true practices?
But they do it after the fact. After they got the foot in the door, then they try to get you to just, see how it's working? Don't worry. Don't worry, be happy.
Oh.
So they're trying to put the grading that we have in the high school into the middle school. We voted about a year ago that bring us the evidence that it's improving learning in the high school before we start throwing everything upside down in the middle school.
So
we get nothing, silence.
Wow. So we have probably about 14, 15 minutes. Talk to me about competency-based grading, because it's everywhere that I go, in every school district, and it's a different description. Some are using the ABCD along with the 1, 2, 3, 4. Some are using just ABCD. Some are using 1, 2, 3, 4. How on God's green earth are they compatible? How is an A a 1 and a B a 2 or reverse? And how can you, when you go on to college, so this would be at the high school level, how do you compare them?
There's a theory of competency-based grading, and then there's the implementation.
Okay.
Implementation is impossible based on the theory. So if everybody gets a chance to redo, that's too much work for the teacher.
Wait a minute, everybody gets to redo what?
If they fail a test, they get to redo it. Or if they want to take a redo and get a higher grade, they're supposed to, it's called mastery. You can keep taking the competency over and over till you master it, and then you go on to the next one. So only students that fail are allowed to redo, because it would be too much work for the teachers to redo for the highest.
But what if I got a B
and you wanted
and I really felt
You should have gotten
that I should have been an A. It was a bad day.
And you're willing
My
to
hair
do
wasn't correct, and I'm not allowed to redo?
and you're willing to do the work and study again and try to do it again? No, because you would be a grade grubber.
But someone
So they're
that
bullying
fails
you.
is allowed
They're bullying you with a title. They call them grade grubbers.
grade grubbers?
So this compresses the grades, and when you compress the grades, there's a little disparity between the high and the low. They're a lot closer. So this gets rid of the gaps, because that was the biggest problem, because you have the high learners and the high scorers and the kids that aren't and their low scores, and there was a big gap between. So we're closing the gap. That shows that it's working.
Well, it only shows that the kids that are getting second, third, who even knows, fourth chances to redo and get a higher grade,
Yes.
and the kids that are working hard, doing their homework, studying, doing everything correctly, are being punished.
Yes.
And actually, are they? So yes, this shows them
Teaches them
moving
to
up,
play
but
the
this doesn't show that they're actually growing. It's actually pushing them,
Yes.
their grades down, right?
25% less A's under competency-based grading.
25% less A's
And
based on competency.
25% more F's. Everybody kind of went down.
Okay.
And it doesn't teach you incentive to, to do it right the first time. So you're not getting workforce skills of being, on time, doing it, conscientiously. You can say, well, I'll just do that later. I'll flunk it. I'll make sure I do really bad so then I get another shot. So the kid that gets it right the first time can't differentiate himself from the kid who has 3 tries to get there.
So technically, realistically, that child that failed the test for whatever reason, takes it 3 times and gets an A, they're now on equal par to the person who got it right the first time
Right.
and gets no extra chances to get that A+.
Correct. And a lot of times the teachers don't. If you just master the competency, you get this B or the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go over and above, you exceed the competency, you get the 4 or the A. It doesn't matter what numbers, it's all the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
But if the teachers are too busy, they don't have these opportunities to go and demonstrate that you can exceed the competency. So there's many times those top students don't have the opportunity to excel. So then when they go to college, the grades are all smushed together.
Mm-hmm.
How can they say, I'm so much better than anybody else? Because competencies compresses the grades.
How many years has Nashua had competency-based at the high school?
They put it in the past 3 years.
Okay. In your opinion,
Should never have gone in.
and did it replace the ABCD, or
We used letters A, B, C, D, because that way it masks the fact that we're using it. But you can do 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use A, B, C, D, or
Okay.
A, B, C, F. I don't know if they
even
use
have a D anymore? Yeah.
Right. But you can switch it. But and then when you average, if you've got a 1 and a 2, and you average it out, you got 1.5. So there are in betweens. You can do A minus, A plus. You can get all the same grades.
Well, it seems to me that if you were going to bring in the competency-based grading, that you would want to do both at the same time so you could see if it's working. If you throw one out and go totally with another,
Did that
you would
for
never
a semester, but then
I
they
thought I
said
remembered.
they said it was ridiculous. It was too hard for the teachers. It was double work. And then it wasn't along with the philosophy that this, you just got to get down into the weeds and do it the right way. But if you master something, the kids that do well, they don't go on to something else. They're still there in the classroom. It's not a true mastery.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's mastery of what was set there
right.
at that time,
But
at that moment.
the biggest problem is there aren't those upward mobility options to distinguish yourself and get that highest grade so that you can come out on, demonstrating that you worked harder than everybody in
Right.
the class. That's gone. So it demotivates the top kids. Wow. And it demotivates the bottom kids because they have 5 tries.
Wow. So technically, the A students, the motivated, studying, principled students, actually should get an F so that they can get a couple of chances like everybody else.
I guess so. But I don't think they would do that.
Oh, they would never do that. No, I understand that
Right.
because that's who they are. But I
right.
mean, that's insane.
They're not playing the game that way, but anyway, it's a bad system. It should be fixed. Maine just got rid of it. The whole state threw it out.
Really?
Yeah,
Really? And how long did it take them
Couple
to?
years.
A couple years?
we tried this in the 90s. It's called outcome-based education.
Well, that's what I
And
thought.
it failed.
Because it's jack of all trades, master of none. It's a failed system that came from California, and it was,
But-
if I remember correctly, it was intended for students that didn't graduate high school, and it was used
Right.
to
Remediate
for
them.
to remediate them. But yet it spread across the United States
Now
as
it's good enough
wildfire.
for everybody.
Wow.
So all these systems, No Child Left Behind, ESSA, or whatever the name is, it's all the same thing. It's all
they just rename it and rename it and rename it.
it's a uniform education, top-down control. Now we have a uniform grading system. Next, we're going to have social emotional learning. Everything puts a straitjacket on the district and the teacher. So they can't innovate in the classroom. They have to follow the leader.
And technically, the school board should say no to those curriculums, but yet it depends on what the majority is and whether they are following the rule of law
Yep.
and holding the superintendent accountable because they are the ones that make those
They
decisions.
put it in as a pilot. They cry crocodile tears, and it never goes out. We had, it was a 4-4 vote for the competency grading, and then the last vote put it back in. It could have gone either way.
Wow.
So we've got it.
That is, I just don't remember growing up at all with these kind of games with
No.
with education and moving on to college and getting a good job, which was the whole point. You'd go to school, do the best you can, get into a really good college, get a great job, provide for your family, earn money, move yourself up. They're destroying all of that.
In the name of workforce training. But like they took out cursive, they also took out the math tables, memorizing math tables. So we put in, they did that in 15. Both of them went out. So, no, 2010. So in 2015, the legislature put in a law encouraging districts to do it. Once it's out, they can't mandate it back in. It was in there, but they yank it out, and now they can only encourage it back in. Otherwise, it violates the Constitution, 28A, an unfunded mandate.
Wow.
So our
The
district,
multiplication tables are everything.
I laughed at my son. I said, you can sit there and count on your fingers a million times, so you could learn.
You can make one of those little boxes and you can put trees and flowers on it and all that stuff. Because I've seen on YouTube all these different ways that they do the math, and I'm just like,
Well, I just laughed at him. I said,
just do it in your
That's
head.
pretty silly. You're going to wear out your fingertips. And
Well,
he
seems
understood, and
yeah.
they got
well,
to it.
he's your son. It's
But
like my son.
They
but
have to
gosh.
be motivated to see why they're doing it.
Well, it seems to me, I remember when my youngest was in elementary school and they were getting rid of phonics. And I said, are you crazy? You need phonics at least till 4th grade. You need that ability to decipher any and every word that comes across in front of you for the rest of your life. If you teach whole words, you never get past a 4th or 5th grade knowledge because it's limiting. You don't know how to do anything. And I remember teaching my youngest phonics and whole word because both of his aunts are teachers, and they're like, and I knew, teach both, and I did. And he was sounding out a word. I think it was in 2nd grade. And the principal was called in and told that he was not allowed to sound that out because it made him sound stupid.
Oh, okay.
So that's how they got rid of phonics, saying you sounded stupid. And I think the word stupid was, for another word that they're not allowed to say, which is wrong. But they stopped them, and I continued it because you need that to continue your reading comprehension, to know the words, to be able to.
I'm a fan of phonics, but I did have one of my 6 kids who learned without it.
Well, everyone's
And
different,
I'm like,
but that's okay.
I don't to this day understand how he did
What
it.
number in the
He's
6?
number 4.
Because he heard everything else through the other 4.
And he
I'm
was
guessing.
great with languages. He took French, and they told him to skip French 3 and go on to French 4. I'm like, how does that happen? So there was something very strange there, but
I'm guessing number 4 in the line, he got it from the other 3.
he listened a lot.
Yeah,
He's a good listener.
absolutely. So I'm thinking he got all that stuff. He got phonics without anybody knowing, and
Right.
he assimilated that, and he was ready for
Well,
whole
I
language.
sat there and he's reading these books, and he's reading them quietly. The first ones would always read out loud. They never did anything quiet. So I finally put him on my lap, and I said, please read to me. So he's reading, and he made a few mistakes, and I let it go. And then finally I pointed one out, and he turned to me and he says, Mom, I'm teaching myself. That was it.
Okay.
So I backed off. He didn't have phonics.
That's a lovely story.
It is. And, you work with a kid.
But again, he's an exception, so you don't run an entire curriculum.
Right.
And a school according to 1 or 2, again.
It's a tool that most kids benefit
And
from.
you need to have as many tools in your tool belt as humanly
and
possible.
flexibility.
Yes.
When the child doesn't fit the boxes.
Because you can't put all these little lovely students, these brilliant little sponge minds,
Yeah.
and shove them all through a square peg or a square hole. Wait a minute.
It's kind of great.
They're the pegs, yeah.
It's kind of great when they just blow your mind like that.
Well, I do remember my middle child did not speak for 2 years, and we were seriously saying, oh my goodness, why is he not speaking? Well, on his 2nd birthday, he opened his mouth, and the first words that came out were, consequently, Mummy. What? Excuse me?
Guess he was listening.
Consequently, Mummy. So that's why you said number 4. I was like, oh, that's because he took in everything that the other 4 said. Well, that one never shut up. We had to limit him. Friends and family had to limit him, God bless his little cotton socks, to 100 questions a day. And we actually had to click because
Oh, no.
it was bad.
My first was like that, but I would never count questions.
I had to.
Well, I only
had
had
to.
one at the time, so I put up with it.
I mean, it was great, but oh my goodness, it was exhausting.
Exactly.
But now, this same child can quote you every single word out of the Constitution, every amendment, laws, RSAs, and you sit there going, okay, as it, and your hair flies backwards
That's good.
from a child that never,
That's why
you know,
kids are
never
worth
spoke.
it. Kids are definitely
And they
worth
need to be educated 1,000% to the best that we can give them, and not on the latest and greatest thing flying through, and then throw your shoulders up and hands in the air to say, whoops, it didn't work. We don't have time for whoops.
No.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Doris, for coming
you.
in and talking about a very important subject. I think the public
Here
needs
you're running.
to know.
You're not scared to run now?
I am nervous. I am running for school board, and I am nervous, but in speaking with many, many people, it's important that all sides be represented.
Well, good
So
luck.
I would love to have you come back, and thank you so much for educating us on all about school boards and competency-based grading. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.